What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode of Bleeding BNG. Before we get too deep into this episode, you already know what I'm going to say. Be sure to comment, be sure to like, and be sure to subscribe. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the matter at hand because we actually have an emergency pod today. So I'm going to leave you guys with a short video. And I know I say that and I usually ramble on to a 25 to 30 minute video, but I promise you, I'm gonna probably get you out here under 10 minutes. Nah, let me not guarantee that. 15 for sure, though. 15 for sure. So without further ado, man, let's get into this episode. To give you a timestamp as I do for all of my episodes, today is Tuesday, February the 25th, 2025. And as I said in my previous video that I did for the channel when I ranked the 5 biggest needs for the Washington Commanders going into the offseason, I mentioned that it's Combine Week. And this is where the moving and shaking starts to happen towards the new league year, towards the 2025 season. All that pillow talking that the players and the organizations were doing at Radio Row, yeah, it sounds nice. Flirting with Myles Garrett at Radio Row. Flirting with Max Crosby at Radio Row. Yeah, it sounds nice, but it really, like, everything gets to cracking. You know, if I could use my 2004 Ebonics, everything starts to get to cracking at the NFL Combine. And one of the many reasons that is because this is the first time since, the past previous season where front offices, GMs, agents, and players are starting to meet face-to-face. And we know things move better a lot faster face-to-face, even in the world where we're so trapped to our phones and to social media. And with that being said, today was actually the first time that we actually got what I would call some substantial news regarding our Washington Commanders, the roster, and what we're going to be doing with our roster and with the players on the roster towards the 2025 season. And around 9:30 a.m. today, it was initially reported by Jordan Schultz, I believe of CBS Sports, that the Commanders have granted longtime veteran defensive tackle Jonathan Allen a permission to seek a trade. They have granted defensive tackle Jonathan Allen a permission to seek a trade, giving him all the leeway to go gauge his interest out there on the trade market. And while Adam Peters did have a press conference today where he said that all options are on the table, I don't see a scenario where Jonathan Allen is brought back and is a Washington Commander and plays another snap or another down as a Washington Commander. And that's rather bittersweet to say. I'll admit that's rather bittersweet to say, and I'm going to list some bullet points as to why, and I'm going to get you guys on your way. But you come to Bleeding BNG for the most raw, uncut, and unfiltered analysis on your Washington Commanders, right? And I'll be a fool and I'll be lying if I didn't say that there were some games over the course of the 4 years that I've done this podcast where I've gotten in Jonathan Allen's ass, no diddy, for him not playing up to his potential or not playing up to, his pay in recent years with that over $20 million contract that he had signed in the 2021 offseason. But I would be remiss to say that, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that Jonathan Allen is probably going to go down as one of the best defensive interior linemen in franchise history. And I don't think that that's hyperbole to say. You got Darryl Grant, like he's competing with the likes of like Cornelius Griffin, who was a dog as well. But we got Barry Cofield, and Jonathan Allen is a guy that wanted to be a Commander initially from the jump, with him being a local guy, and for him to be able to spend 8 years to start off his career with the team that he grew up loving. You heard some other people that get drafted here to say they grew up as Washington fans. Well, it was true with Jonathan Allen, him being a local kid coming out of Stonebridge High School. And I actually have a personal story regarding Jonathan Allen. Just a little footnote. But me and Jonathan Allen came out of actually the same high school class in 2013, right? So as you can imagine, it pains me to hear all the talk in the recent years of how he's aged, because I ain't got no choice to look at myself like, damn, bro, I guess we aging too. Because me and Jonathan Allen, we graduated high school the same graduating class. We're around the same age. He's a couple months older than me. But Jonathan Allen gave me one of those moments where, like, you guys ever, growing up playing grassroots sports and things of that nature, and you actually think you're going to get to the league, but then you got that moment where you're like, bro, you might not have it like that, bro. You might not have it like that. Well, one of my initial moments like that revolves Jonathan Allen in a funny way. Back when I was going into my senior year of high school, I actually grabbed a newspaper, dating myself. Wow. We actually read newspapers in 2012. I actually grabbed the newspaper because I was so interested to hear about the Washington Post, the sports section. They actually did like a thing throughout the summer where they were looking at outlooks through teams, right? Outlook through high school football teams of that nature and things of that. And they would look in spotlighting different teams across the area. And I was just so intrigued about, that just portion of the section throughout that summer, waiting for them to talk about my beloved Bowie Bulldogs. And I honestly don't think that they ever got to us. But I was transferring back into Bowie High School. But I honestly remember them doing a spotlight post on Stonebridge High School and this demon defensive lineman that they had in Jonathan Allen. And they had a picture of him. And when I looked at that picture going into my senior year of high school, I was like, yeah, bro, this pro football shit, this NFL shit might not be for you. Might not be for you, because God loves all his children, but God definitely picked some favorites when he giving out all these athletic traits. Because when I tell you that John Allen looked like a goddamn man-child, and I remember that picture that I saw in that Washington Post that day, 12, almost 13 years ago, bro was out there playing with a neck roll. So to see him playing with that Umbop face mask that he's been playing with, that goes straight down the middle, that he's been playing with over the last couple of years, doesn't surprise me in the least. Because he's a straight throwback football player through and through. And yeah, it was something that I held on to, because it was like a moment that smacked me in the face, like, bro, we might not be built for this. We might have to think of a new life plan. We might have to think of a new life plan. You couldn't have told me going into my senior year that I wasn't going to the NFL until I saw that Jonathan Allen picture. But to see him go on and be dominant at Alabama, to see him get drafted by the Washington franchise, which was the Redskins at the time. John Allen was a Redskin. That lets you know how long he's been here. Drafted in the 2017 draft, and ultimately becoming a two-time Pro Bowler. I think he was one of the better draft picks of the Washington franchise during the 2010 season. During the 2010 decade. And he was ultimately a hit of a draft pick. This was a guy that was, one thing that you can't deny about John Allen is that, like, he came in mature beyond his years. Like, he was a leader, whether that was unfair or not. He was deemed a leader as a rookie. Like, he was out there talking on the front line when we was going through the pits of the pits during the Dan Snyder era. And I think that he wore that with a badge of honor, with, the Washington Commanders being his, childhood franchise favorite team. Childhood favorite team and things of that nature. And I can't do nothing but tip my cap to that. Because John Allen honestly lived the dream that I had as a youngin', growing up playing for the Washington franchise, and end up being a star and a linchpin in that community. Hats off to John Allen. That was my initial thoughts when I heard about him, the Commanders granting him access to go look for a trade, because I ultimately don't think that he's going to be back. I think he has played his last snap as a Commander. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, it is bittersweet. I just gave you a couple of reasons why it's bitter, but now let me give you a couple of reasons why it is sweet. Pause. No Diddy. But if John Allen is outright traded or he's released, he does free up $17 million in cap space, right? And if we have an honest to God assessment and we take those burgundy and gold tinted lenses off, the biggest thing to address going into the 2025 season is the run defense. The run defense was the most putrid thing about the 2024 Washington Commanders. And while John Allen missed majority of the season, I think he went out in week 6 against the Baltimore Ravens, and he had a valiant effort coming back, and I think playing his best football in a couple of years when he came back in the playoffs, coming off of that torn pectoral muscle. John Allen played a part in that as well. And John Allen isn't the Jonathan Allen that we saw from 2017 to 2022. He's not. He's not. Because to give John Allen some more flowers and to give him some more praise, he was a linchpin on some dominant or a tick under dominant, some really good defensive lines that we had in 2021 and 2022 when we were going with those potential 4 horsemen defensive linemen when we picked 4 back-to-back picks on first round defensive linemen with John Allen, Daron Payne, Montez Sweat, and Chase Young. John Allen was the first one. And he was, the first installation of that Alabama wall that started to turn the franchise around. Because before that, we had some putrid defenses after those Greg Williams years, right? So John Allen played to his 17th overall pick. He outshined that. I would say that he outperformed that. And if we can remember coming out of Alabama, at one point during his senior season, he was projected to be the number 2 pick behind Myles Garrett, who's everybody is slobbering this offseason. And I understand it. Myles Garrett might be the best defensive player in football. But that's just another footnote to mention because it's interesting to see how their career paths have went. And I think that they're aging differently, even though they're similar in age. One of the reasons I think that is because one of the reasons why I think our run defense took a downward spiral, a downturn during the 2024 season is because I honestly think that John Allen and Daron Payne might be damaged goods. And I'm not trying to be emotional when I say that. Let me tell you why. I think that John Allen and Daron Payne were ran to the ground by the Ron Rivera regime. If we could go look back at some of those snap counts from the 2021, the 2022, the 2020 on to the 2023 season, John Allen and Daron Payne were over there playing 80, 85, 90% of the snaps. And that's not typical of an NFL D lineman. And that's one of the reasons why I think they're aging as poorly as they are. Like Daron Payne should be in the prime of his career. John Allen technically as well. But I think that both of these guys, I think that there is a scenario and there's a case where those guys have seen their better years and their better days of playing football. Like their better days are already behind them. I think that there's a potential scenario where that is just simply because they were worn down, whether they missed games or not, just playing so much due to the lack of depth behind them. That's another shout out to the piss poor roster construction that coach-centric, GM-centric paddle boat Ron Rivera left us with. I think those guys playing so many snaps wore them down, and the 2024 run defense was a result. And the reason that I say that is because Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, like I said, they were linchpins on some decent to damn good defensive lines at one point that held up against the run really well. If we can look at some of those 2020 to 2022 rush defenses, those were some of the top in the league. But during the 2024 season, I have never seen Daron Payne and John Allen get pushed off their spot in the run game so easy. Lose so much ground against the double team so easy. And it's because I think they're aging backwards. Or I think they're aging poorly due to the amount of tread that the Ron Rivera era put on their tires. And I hate that, as I mentioned, this is a local guy that's put so much into the burgundy and gold. And the thing that I hate the most is that, because if you can remember, it was one of those early games. It might have been the Arizona game where, if y'all can remember, Frankie Louvu was out there breaking the team down in the huddle. And John Allen had a grin on his face from ear to ear. John Allen looked like he ain't never been as happy as he was in that moment being a Washington football team player. And then for him to have that injury a couple of weeks after that, miss most of this magical season, and then for him to ultimately, what it looks like, not be able to experience the Jaden Daniels experience as a Washington Commander, that's the thing that bums me out the most. And I know I said that I was going to get you guys out of here for 15 minutes. So to wrap up the video, though, it clears up some cap space. And I think that defensive tackle is definitely a need now going into the 2025 offseason. And as I mentioned in my last episode, that's why you need to check it out, because we spit facts all over there. I couldn't think of a better draft to be looking for defensive tackles. I think Daniel Jeremiah said, who's one of my favorite draft gurus, he said that he had a starter grade for 24 of the defensive tackles that are entering the 2025 draft. So it's kind of like a gift and a curse, because being that is so as well, I think that John Allen isn't going to garner as much interest on the trade. I know that the Commanders are giving him the option of, gauging his trade interest, but I don't think that his market might be as fruitful as it was in a couple of years ago. One, he is coming off of injury, but I think teams know that they can get some dominant defensive tackles in the draft, and there's a decent. No, it's not. They're looking at all. I was going to say that there's some good defensive tackles in the free agency, but honestly, if we outright release Jonathan Allen, which I think ultimately might be the play, John Allen immediately shoots up to the top of the free agent defensive tackle market. And I'm interested to see where he goes. And yeah, salute, John. Thank you for giving me that memory, man. The smack of reality to let me know that I might not be built for that pro football shit, man, because you look like goddamn Shrek out there playing with a neck brace. And yeah, it was definitely levels to that. But that'll do it for this emergency pod of Bleeding B&G, man. As always, please be sure to comment. Please be sure to like. Please be sure to subscribe. It's Combat Week. I'm thinking of doing a watch party live stream of the 40-yard dashes, of the on-field drills. So make sure you tapped into the channel. Make sure you don't miss a second of Bleeding B&G, and I'll check in on y'all on the flip side. Peace.